This then is the third in a mini-series of videos featuring this old Predator model, and there'll be links up there to the previous two. Essentially the story so far was that originally I had planned to use this little 30mm EDF fan arrangement, and that was situated under the back there, but that proved to not work at all. It scooted along the ground at an incredible rate, hopped off the ground and then landed again, and I tried it many times. Eventually the shroud hit something. This is what's left of the impeller. Fortunately I have a replacement that will go onto there, and indeed off into another project, like so. In the second video then I showed that I'd modified it again using a little 1106 motor with this rather fetching 5-bladed fan, and it got off the ground and went away somewhat lacking control, shall we say. Eventually I did manage to get it back. It almost ended up in the local dog pound, and believe me, the Bermuda Triangle has nothing on the dog pound with regards to aircraft never being seen again. I was encouraged after that video. I was about to give up, but people had said, oh no, carry on, there must be a way to get it to fly better, and that is the purpose of today's video. The receiver I'm using is this little FR Sky jobby, and that comes off S-Bus into a Radio-Link BIME-D gyro controller. I found that the gyro made no difference to its flight characteristics in this case, although I've used it very successfully on other models. The feedback suggested that at least one of my issues was that there were no proper elevators. I've marked out here then using that looks about right to me scientific method. That's what I'm going to do then, cut these out. Now the challenge is that it's obviously a V-tail. What I do have is a pair of these very small, I think they're 1.8 gram servos, which I can use on the elevators there, just joined together on a cable. The challenge there, of course, is that if I have them in their traditional configuration, they're going to be moving in opposite directions, which is fine when you're using that for the ailerons, but not exactly what you want for elevators. Now I have an idea. Clearly I could glue the little servos in this way round, which would look a bit odd, but I have another idea. If the idea works out, you'll be seeing that in this video. If not, they'll be glued on like so. The other change that I'm going to make is changing out the BIME-D for a BIME-A. Now this is the gyro that has the conventional arrangement, elevator and rudder on the separate channels there. I was unable to find any control horns of the right size. I've just 3D printed these up. I'm going to try those and see if they're strong enough. I'm going to go ahead now then and cut out those elevators and see if my modification to a servo is going to work, and we'll come back later. Here's the elevator solution in action, and clearly my modification to one of the servos worked out okay. Now you may be asking yourself, if you're a youngster that is, how is this possible? Back in the day when transmitters looked like this, and clearly not computer programmable, and many didn't have the facility to be able to reverse servos simply by throwing a switch, and this was the time when servos looked like this. How things have changed. The trick is to take the servo apart clearly and swap both the motor wires and the potentiometer wires. There's a little variable resistor or potentiometer that sits underneath the servo arm there to detect the position of the servo. I'll show you now how I performed the same trick on this little guy. I've taken the little servo apart then, and here we can see the motor and the two wires going to the circuit board here. My idea then is to swap the motor wires over and thus reverse the direction of this particular servo. You can see there the colour of the solder, and that's changed because it's the lead-free type of solder. I'm just going to try and apply a little normal leaded solder to that joint. The blue wire then now to the centre, and the red wire to the outside there. If we can clean some of that flux off. There. Functional, if not aesthetically pleasing, as I always say. Now with the motor wires crossed, the next thing we have to do is to swap over the ends of the potentiometer, which will be this wire here and here. I've got a little bit better light on the subject now to reattach the wires, hopefully. We have this little insulating shield which goes over the top of the potentiometer there. I have some liquid insulation plasti dip. I will put some over there before I seal the thing up, and I think we should be good to go and see if it works. That's it now then for this round of modifications. We now have our working elevators. Ailerons as before, although I've got a gyro in there. It's worth noting that these little BIME controllers make very good S-bus to PWM converters in their own right. It's a very lightweight thing, even if you choose not to use the gyro functions at all. However, I have set up my transmitter for the gyro function.
Gyro mode.
I switch it in now. You won't be able to see very much, but you should be able to hear the movement of the servos. You can see the control surfaces move better. I put it into stabilize mode.
Stabilize mode.
So if it turns this way, we can see the right hand aileron going up and vice versa. If we pitch down, the elevators go up. If we pitch up, the elevators go down. We'll keep that switched off, I think, for the first flight.
Manual mode.
And see how we get on. Thanks for watching.